Have you ever felt like you've lost all hope? Like you are beyond saving, moving among the deep trenches aimlessly, without a light at the end of the tunnel? I have. And it's a miracle I am here today, as I was in an extremely dark and dismal place. After growing up in a verbally and physically abusive home, then the abuse continued when I went to school and I was bullied endlessly by my peers at school. So by the age of 14, I was depressed, and I had even fought with homicidal and suicidal thoughts. Yes, I was raised in a church, not the church I attend today, and I knew about God and Jesus, but by that year I had thought I was hopeless and helpless and decided that even God couldn't help me. By the age of 15, I was unable to control myself. I was soon diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and dissociative identity disorder, as well as severe chronic depression. I was hospitalized several times and I was failing school. I was in ninth grade. As a result, it was believed by professional people, they actually said this, that I would never have a normal life, go to college, or even raise a family. My mother was preparing herself for a life filled with my dependency. My abuser, my father, had eventually left, but that is another story for another time. We found City Limits Assembly of God in June of 1999. I was 16. It led me to Christ, and it was exactly what I needed. It retaught me the true person and identity of who God was. Several years of following Him led me to what I'm about to share with you today. Our portion of text is Mark chapter 1, verses 32 through 34, and I am reading from the New King James Version. At evening, when the sun had set, they brought him to all who were sick and those who were demon-possessed. The whole city was gathered together at the door. Then he healed many who were sick with various diseases and cast out many demons. And he did not allow the demons to speak because they knew him. Many people in Jesus' time were lost, and to be demon-possessed was a horrible thing. Because I believe my episodes I lived with were pretty close to that experience, I know this full well. In a time in the ancient world that existed, they didn't have access to the medical science of stuff that we have today. They didn't have things to heal them. They didn't have or even know about preventative measures or motions that you can do to try to heal someone. It actually wasn't until the early 20th century till we hadn't even discovered what even bacteria was, let alone how to prevent it or find ways washing your hands and, gloves when you're dealing with blood and all that stuff. So we didn't even know how to they didn't even know how to prevent major diseases back then. So to live in this time where you had all this with a sickness that couldn't be cured, you felt like you had no hope. Then, bam! Jesus steps into the picture. He's healing people. He's restoring families. Have you ever been so desperate to be whole, you felt incomplete, that you would travel as far as you could? That's what these people did. They tracked Jesus down. They didn't care what they would have to do to get to him or risk. They had had enough. And I am here to tell you that this same Jesus is still alive and healing people. I don't know this because someone told me to believe. And I don't believe it because of something I read about or that I saw on the news or even saw on Facebook. I know this firsthand because in a time where I was sick and living in fear, I was in bondage and risked it all. I called it out to Jesus. This happened to me September 14th, 2015, around 11:30 p.m. I don't remember the trigger anymore, but I do remember how close I was to just giving into the urge to dissociate. This was something I learned to live with. This was something I tried other ways to purge myself from. But something inside of me wanted to change. So I prayed, and I prayed like I had never prayed before. One hand on my belly and one hand on my head, face towards heaven, laying on my bed. I cried out to God for what seemed like 20 minutes. But it was a Kairos moment. It was an hour and a half. Then when the time came, God had silenced me. Be still and know that I am God. As I laid on my bed, face towards heaven, as still as I could, I felt the very hand of God reach down inside me from the top of my head, grab hold of my heart, and pull out and weed it out all my darkness. I could see it happening as a gardener who's pulling weeds. When you pull a weed and you see the roots and all the dirt and everything's falling out, and then shake it loose. And it was painful. I remember crying out in pain. But similar to when you go to see a chiropractor and they crack your back in alignment and it hurt, then you feel relief. That's exactly what happened here. And that, because it was a heavenly moment, a divine intervention in my life, I can't describe it any other way. There's no way I could put this into words. So that's the best I could describe this. So from that moment on, I was launched forward. I was filled with the Holy Ghost again with this onward momentum. It is my mission in life to share this with the world, focusing mainly on teenagers, because that was when I was hopeless and I couldn't even stop, even if I tried. In conclusion, Jesus healed the sick, then the demon possessed 2,000 plus years ago. He did it then, and he proved his divinity. The great news we share is it doesn't stop then. Jesus is still healing to this day, and I am physical proof to that very power. I am healed and called by God to share this miracle with the world. It is my goal and my plan to do so. Then it makes worthwhile, and someone out there listening might have dealt with similar issues, and they too can be free from all of it. Thank you.